Everybody, I have a video here for you today. Now, if you follow my channel, you know I like to bring you places that you've never heard about, ancient mysteries that really haven't been covered a lot on YouTube, or maybe not at all. Well, today's one of those videos. We are flying down to a place called Kowm in Syria, and if you have a better pronunciation of that, there's a couple ways to spell this here, but this is Kowm, just a small village. And if we back out, here is Palmyra. Some of you may have heard of that. I have mentioned that in a few of my older videos. But here is Kowm right here, 50 miles northeast. The name of the town, Kowm, kind of rang a bell in my mind. And I remember it on some lists, and I actually assumed this was in Egypt. But here you notice there is a mound or a tell right in the middle of this little village here. Let's go over to some historical view and get a little better look at this. Now here is an image from 2010, and when I saw this I was pretty surprised, because immediately my mind went to one thing and one place. Now here is my video, Sogmatar, Temple of the Seven Planets in the Hall of Records from 2016, and I have brought up a few questions about Sogmatar. How far back does this really go? This is very close to Karahan Tepe and Göbekli Tepe, and I propose that maybe this was constructed around the time that those ancient sites were also constructed, maybe near the Younger Dryas time period. This ancient tell or mound just seemed very weird, and there was no clear answers on it. Well, this place here at Kowm appears to be identical. And the time period for this, well, maybe we can get some answers as far as Sogmatar's construction originally, possibly. But here, these two places seem very much alike. But here is Kowm today. Little village, huge mound right in the middle of it, just like Sogmatar. There are smaller mounds nearby. One of these is Kowm number 2. Now the size, it's about 160 meters by 120 meters. I believe that is what I read. And it appears it has something coming down the very east side face here. Is that an ancient stairway? That's the first thing I thought about, facing east. But this place is located in a large basin. Just read a little here. It says Kowm, or Kowm, is a circular 20-kilometer gap in the Syrian mountains that houses a series of archaeological sites. The Kowm oasis is located northeast of Palmyra in Syria. It shows some of the longest and most important cultural sequences in the Middle East, with periods of occupation by humans for over 1 million years. On Google Books, I found this one book that had one pic here, kind of a close-up of this ancient tell or mound. I found another book that covered the area and the research, the excavations that went on here. And this site goes way back in history, and what was found here I think is fascinating. This is a large well with steps here. Here's a couple pics, and I know these aren't the clearest, but just excavations that were going on here. And here's a person standing right here, so what they were excavating, how far back does that really go? But here, an article on this, and they're all pretty much the same based on a few different periods of research. It says, an initial 5-day sounding was made in 1967 by M.N. Van Loon and R.H. Dormanen with a 3 by 50 meters trench at Kowm number 1. A large Neolithic tell, 3 hectares, about 7.4 acres in size. They categorize their finding into 5 periods: early Neolithic, middle Neolithic, late Neolithic, post-Neolithic. And then further excavations were made into a small outlying tell called Kowm II by Daniel Strader between 1978 and 1987. It says in 1996 in the region, a 450,000-year-old skull fragment of Homo erectus was discovered in the Acheulean level of the old Paleolithic at a site nearby, and says in 2005 the team from the University of Basel found over 40 fossilized bone fragments from a mammoth camel dating as far back as 150,000 years, and this giant camel was thought to be twice the size of a modern camel. And here's a story that the BBC did on that giant camel that was found here, along with human bone fragments. 40 bone fragments of the camel were found, along with human bones. Here are some human teeth that were found here, Neanderthal-like. And here is what they theorize how big this camel was compared to the modern camel we have today. That is huge. That's mega. What I found most interesting, it says, this site was abandoned prior to 11,000 BC and then reoccupied in the Neolithic between 7,000 and 6,500 BC. Paleobotanical samples were analyzed by William Van Zys, who concluded that emmer wheat and hard wheat had been cultivated since the earliest Neolithic stage at Kowm, number 1, dating to 6,300 BC. Says Danielle Schroeder excavated Kowm 2 more recently and dated this to the Neolithic as far back as 9,000 years ago. Van Zys suggests that this form of irrigation may have been employed at Kowm number 1, and the excavators at Kowm 2 tentatively agreed with this hypothesis. It suggested that the inhabitants could have made simple channels from local springs to water the fields using simple gravity system to deal with the irregular rainfall patterns. This type of early irrigation is similar to that suggested to have been employed at Jericho. Jacques Kowm also suggested that Kowm is possible location for the invention of irrigation. Nothing was really known about this place till 50 years ago. Only a couple periods of research was done here, but this is kind of a war-torn area today. Not a lot is known about this. Nothing on YouTube about this site, but I thought this was well worth the effort. But homes in this area, stretching back maybe 9,000 years, were built very, very well, and reminds me a little of Çatalhöyük and Navali Çoray in Turkey. But the site of Kowm is about 125 miles south of Sogmatar that I've talked about in Turkey, and these two sites appear to be very similar. But this is a site that caught my eye. I'll leave some links below. They theorize habitation has gone back maybe almost 1 million years as far as our ancestors being here. But if this place was repopulated about 9,000 years ago, does that give us a clue to the origin of the mound and when that mound was started? Well, I think it might. And could that dating lead us to a possible origin of Sogmatar? Well, that's speculation, but maybe good speculation. I don't know. I was poking around this region, just looking into a future video, and I just happened to catch what looked like something ancient here, right in the middle of this little village. A lot of these places around here have something really ancient in them. I'm glad I checked out this town. It's in a basin here, about 20 kilometers across. But this appears to be a very ancient part of the world. Not a lot is known about this site. No videos on YouTube going over the archaeological work here. Thought this was well worth a video. Hope you thought that was cool. And you all have a very nice day.